And Chris, there was a report this weekend that the Carolina Hurricanes were looking to trade for defenseman Tony DeAngelo, who played with the team in 2021-2022. He played that one season with the Carolina Hurricanes. He was a restricted free agent. They weren't able to agree to terms, the Canes and DeAngelo, in terms of a contract extension, so they traded his rights to the Philadelphia Flyers. They got 3 draft picks in return. He'd signed a 2-year, $10 million contract with the Flyers before last season. Well, the Flyers fired their general manager. That also means the new GM wants to come in, clean house, get rid of some guys. Well, he wants to get rid of Tony DeAngelo, so looking to send him back to Carolina. To me, when I first saw this story, was that if the Carolina Hurricanes are willing to trade back for Tony DeAngelo at a cheap price, if the Flyers keep half his salary, that indicated to me that Brett Pesce is going to be gone. That they found a trade partner for Brett Pesce, and that Brett Pesce is going to be out the door. Otherwise, you're going to have a log jam and a backlog of right-handed puck-moving defensemen. And we saw last week, Chris, the reports that Brett Pesce might be on the move. And to me, this all but confirmed it in my eyes when I saw this report.
I'm with you because
it sucks. I don't want to see Brett Pesce go.
I don't either. And honestly, Tony DeAngelo did a fine job when he was here with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
But he's not Brett Pesce,
no.
Right? So you are taking a step down by replacing Brett Pesce with Tony DeAngelo. So that's one reason to think that this is a possibility. Another reason to think that this is a possibility is the fact that as you mentioned, the log jam that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Why would the team need to bring him back? Why would the team need to go backwards when you were just in a situation where a year after this, Don Waddell, not head coach, I was going to say head coach, the general manager, Don Waddell, said this is the best roster that the team has put together. Speaking of the 2022-2023 team, it's a year after Tony DeAngelo was there. So if you're going to go backwards with that, then that means that you're wanting to get somebody that you're already comfortable with, because somebody else that you're comfortable with may not be there anymore. And when me and you spoke about this morning, it seemed to be a confirmation that maybe we're not going to see Brett Pesce too much longer.
Yeah, it was the first thing that popped into my head, because if you're not, we and I had this conversation last week, if you're not able to work out a long-term contract with Brett Pesce, do you move him to get something valuable in return? Brett Pesce is going into the final year of his contract, makes just a shade over $4 million a year. He's 28 years old. There's a big-time market for a guy like Brett Pesce, a guy who can play in your top 4, and he's a right-handed shot who has offensive upside as well. There's demand for guys like that. Now, Here's the thing. Carolina can afford to make this move in the sense that you could slide Jalen Chatfield up from that third defensive pair up to where Brett Pesce played alongside Brady Shea. And honestly, I don't think you miss a beat in your top 4, and that's a compliment to Jalen Chatfield and what he showed last season in his first year, in the full year in the NHL. You don't miss a beat. And also, you could probably look to sign a contract extension with Jalen Chatfield this offseason as well. He's eligible for an extension. So you couple that with the sense that you also add in DeAngelo to be that third pair defenseman on the right side. And guess what? You could play him 10, 12 minutes a night. You can just make sure he's out there when the other team's fourth lines are out there. You don't put him in tough defensive situations. And he quarterbacks your second power play. So that's where he's going to provide value, is doing that. So I would hate to see Brett Pesce leave, but if you're trading Brett Pesce, that means you're getting something of quality in return, because my guess is that if you're getting Brett Pesce, or you're trading Brett Pesce, you might have to add some other pieces with it, but you might be getting a top 6 forward back in return for that, which I think is something the Carolina Hurricanes need. Now, with the cap space they have, they can supplement their defense with someone else. You mentioned Don Waddell. That dude makes moves and gets great value in the moves that he makes. If you're trading Brett Pesce and you're getting a top 6 forward, I'm okay with that move.
Here's the thing also that, it's not all bad when it comes down to Tony DeAngelo, right? We have to remember that he did play a full year with no incident, in the Carolina Hurricanes locker room that we know of. And when he left, a lot of people loved him and really enjoyed him being there as their teammate. But he also, he could find the back of the net from time to time, right? Mm-hmm. And he was somebody that had that ability. He was, one of those guys he's a defenseman with some offensive scoring ability, and sometimes he has outbursts in that. And so if that's going to help the Carolina Hurricanes also, if they feel like everybody else on that back end, if they could put him in good spots so it doesn't get undressed defensively,
Yep.
But he could add something to the offense, then, hey, all power to him if this is what the team wants to go with and how they see themselves moving forward, then I'm for it. There are a few reservations because, there are some times where he gave up some bad goals.
Yeah.
We've seen that a few times, but if they can address those situations and, as you said, not put them in bad situations, then maybe this is a move that works for the Carolina Hurricanes.
He'll need to have a quote unquote stay-at-home defenseman on his left side with him.
Yeah.
So he's going to need to have that in order to make sure that he could still contribute offensively and you don't have to worry about getting cooked on the back end. But when he was here in Carolina that one year, put up 51 points. He had 10 goals, 41 assists in 64 games. He was actually a plus 30 player. Doesn't hurt when you're playing alongside Jacob Slavin, who's one of the best defensemen in the entire league. But again, you don't have to ask as much of him in terms of 5-on-5 situations. I think in terms of on the ice, it's a win. It's a win in my opinion.